General tires are race-proven for high-performance handling. Get a set of Generals today and own the road tomorrow. And welcome back to Driver's Talk. Jay had an opportunity to go to a national touring show that's gaining big momentum for its first stop ever in Las Vegas called Radwood. There was a little bit of 70s there, but mostly 80s and 90s. Not a period that would generally give us a bloody nose.
No, you'd have to think for a second, what was that important in that era? But you found some great stuff.
In all fairness, there were some things, the old cream rises to the top, right? So these people were kind of clever. That show was only announced on the internet a week before, and they got this kind of turnout.
Wow.
So they did pretty good to get some interesting cars.
These are the cars that I grew up with. I maybe wasn't driving them in the 80s, but by the 90s I was. And so, but it's also when you're most impressionable, right? As a kid, seeing these 80s cars being raced in the 90s, it's really exciting stuff.
I was told by the judges that I had to pick out my favorite car. And I obviously like a lot of Japanese stuff, but I'm sorry, when you come across something of this vintage that's been restored to this level, this one really kind of rang the bell.
That Mercedes looks absolutely perfect.
Doesn't it? It looks brand new.
Yeah.
If you're a really double throwdown fan of, well, cars from Japan, obviously, Roy, these are the cars everybody wants to talk about.
This car right here is a 1983 Nissan Skyline, also known as a Newman Skyline because Paul Newman raced these cars back in the 80s. This is an R32 Skyline,
Yep.
Also known as Godzilla by many. It was the Group A killer car of the early 90s.
Killer car is dead right.
These, I believe, were a gentleman's 276 horsepower limited by Japan, but there was a rumor that you could cut one of the vacuum lines where the company marked a little yellow ring on it, and if you cut it, it would go up to 350.
160,000 miles on this thing, and it looks like it just got delivered.
I actually, believe it or not, saw this car about 15 years ago. Circled around the block because I have a matching two-door coupe, also a 6-speed manual. I needed desperately to find out who owned this car. And just as I was sitting there, a guy and his wife came out of a restaurant, gave him my information, proceeded to bother him every year for 4 years. So I've had it now for 11 years.
At this age, at 94, is it getting hard to find parts for?
Yeah, my friends and I love to go junkyard diving every Saturday if we can. But honestly, it hasn't given me a lick of trouble. I don't buy cars to look at them. I bought it for the driving experience.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I buy that one.
Rick, everybody collects something, right?
Right, and collector may be a little ambitious, but in terms of an older, nice car, and you know Acura, particularly in the early years, those cars were amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I wore my way bitchin' hat, too. I don't know if you noticed, but...
I was trying to not notice.
Well, listen, I'm fond of that thing. Chris, tell people what it is you've got.
Well, this is a 1991 Nissan PAO. Nissan commissioned this factory to make these cars for 2 years. They had 250,000 orders for the PAO. They only made 56,000.
So you got a 1-liter motor, 1,000cc engine.
1,000cc.
Automatic?
Automatic, 3-speed.
This thing stole the show. This, if you were single, this is the equivalent of having a puppy at a park.
They're becoming a bit of a thing. Everybody likes these.
They're cute.
It always amazes me what people collect, what people fall in love with, Ricky. These guys are just as enthusiasts as any Corvette guy, Mustang guy, Ferrari guy. They want those cars. That's their personal mission statement, isn't it?
It's funny because you're right. That becomes their delta,
Yep.
and they're determined to accomplish it.
That guy is going to be known by that PAO.
Yeah.
I've been asked about those cars all over the world. I had people in Africa ask me, could I get my hands on a PAO?
Yeah.
Well, yes and no, I guess.
Well, short of the original Mini, I think that's one of the cutest cars on the planet. This show next year will be 4 times this size in Vegas.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I'll make you a bet it might even be bigger.
Thank you, my friend. We got more Driver's Talk when we return.